Alright guys, what is up? It's Jack and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the community wish list for Season 1 in XDefiant. Now, I've compiled a list over here that I'm going to be looking at, and I just wanted to say right off the bat that whatever I name first is not the most important, and whatever I name last is not the least important. These are all equally important, and I believe that they should all come in Season 1, and it makes sense. Some of these things have already been mentioned by Mark Rubin that they are coming, but I believe that they should be in Season 1 at some time. Some of them may be from day one, Season 1, and some of them are going to be coming out sometime later within Season 1, because as you guys know, all seasons are going to last for 3 months. So it's not going to be a 6-week ordeal kind of like the preseason was. It's going to be twice as long as well. So without further ado, let's get into it because we got a lot to talk about and a lot to get into. Oh, one more thing. We also know that there are certain things obviously that are coming in Season 1, such as you know, what the new faction is going to be and the 3 new maps and the 3 new weapons and all that. We know that, but we're basically going to be talking about here such as features or things that the community has been suggesting. Obviously, in 1 week from now, we are going to know exactly what we're going to get in its entirety during the XDefiant Season 1 Insights, which is something they're going to be doing for every season, just like they did with the preseason. So this is going to be kind of like an XDefiant Insights community request, so to speak, right? And obviously anything that comes after that will be after that. I'm pretty sure that Mark Rubin and his crew are going to be doing a really well detailed insight in terms of what we're going to get. So I don't even think the insight that we're going to get in a week from now, which is the day before Season 1 officially launches, I don't even think they're going to be telling us everything, because I think that there's going to be additional things that are going to be in there, such as, for instance, Team Deathmatch was released not too long ago in the game, but we knew it was coming, but we didn't know that it would be before Season 1, and they did it, and voila, there you go. So let's get into it before this video runs a lot longer than it needs to be. So the first thing on my list that I wrote down is Prestige Mode. I think that is something that is very, we know that Ranked Mode is coming, as well as the different, you know, emblems and badges that you're going to be able to get with Ranked Mode. So Prestige Mode, I think, is something that is very reasonable to be there from day one in Season 1. It's something that's obviously highly requested, and I think it's very reasonable. I think it's just a matter of getting the math right and, you know, coming up with the emblems and how you're going to make those look, etc., which is fairly easy. So I really don't see why Prestige Mode will not be in day one, Season 1. Now, along with Prestige Mode, you have to have something else, which is the second thing on my list, and that is additional challenges / mastery camo challenges. Now, it's already been mentioned that the mastery camo challenges are indeed coming, as well as additional challenges. But what other additional challenges am I talking about? So we've got factions in this game with all the different abilities and stuff like that. We need additional faction challenges, and we also need challenges that go in with the game mode of a player's choice. So if you, you know, additional challenges for domination, team deathmatch, occupy, etc., we need additional challenges with that, because if you unleash, right, if you open the floodgates and you unleash Prestige Mode, you have to simultaneously open the floodgates and release a whole bunch of challenges that will support the grind of prestiging, so to speak. So, all right, so we're going to move on to my third thing on the list, and that is specific game modes. Now, obviously, we got Team Deathmatch, which is great, and it's been terrific. It's been a blast. I've been enjoying the hell out of it. But there are other additional game modes that the community themselves have been requesting. Now, we already know that S&D is coming, right? We already know that, so we're not going to be talking about that. So what game modes are we talking about? Well, some of these things I've seen on Twitter, and some of these other things were mentioned in my stream that I did a few hours ago. So what are we talking about here? So we're talking about Bare Bones. Bare Bones was actually something, or should I say a no factions playlist, right? To where you're having a playlist of all the objective-based game modes, or all the more popular modes, so to speak, in the game, right? And basically, you have no faction abilities. And there are a decent amount of players that actually want that. They just want to focus on gun, and they just want to get rid of the faction abilities, and they just want to focus on gun. Simple. I mean, that game mode itself can be called gun, so to speak. So another one, obviously this is me, and a few others as well. We may not be that popular, but hopefully we'll get it every once in a while, and that is free-for-all. I think there needs to be something in there for the solo player, so free-for-all would be awesome. Next, and of course, something that was mentioned on my in my stream earlier today was party modes. Party modes, but with the XDefiant twist, so to speak. Like, the thing that comes to mind with me is, you guys know how, for instance, in Call of Duty, they have gun games, so for every kill you get, you change into a different gun, and you get another kill until you get through all the 20 guns on offer, right? And then you win. Well, for XDefiant, what if we were to do something to where maybe your faction changes for every time you get a kill, or your ability changes for every time you get a kill, right? It could be a faction ability that would change for every single time you get a kill, or something of that nature, or your you know, something like that. I don't know. So again, with XDefiant and with their own flavor of the way they're doing things, I think party modes could be insanely fun, and if they have additional types of rewards for people that get first, second, and third place, as well as challenges themselves, I think that would be really good. I think the community would really eat that up pretty well. All right, moving on to the next thing on my list, which is my number 4, practice zone upgrades. Now, we have the practice zone right now. We didn't have it from launch, and then they put it in or whatnot. But if you look at when you go to highlight it, it says that it's a work in progress. So for season 1, I'm expecting this to no longer be a work in progress. I'm expecting it to go full on, maybe possibly have, you know, some bots in there to where you can shoot against and stuff like that and test things out. I think that's a very reasonable request, and I would go as far as to say that it wouldn't surprise me if this was something that was ready from day 1 in season 1. All right, next up, this is a big one, private matches. I think like as of right now, as of the last stream, I had one of the best streams I've ever had streaming here on YouTube, period. The only time that I've had numbers that were equivalent to, as well as communication and fun factor, that would be about as equivalent as to what was earlier today, was back in 2018 during Black Ops 4, okay? Or maybe even, or was it early 2019, right? During Black Ops 4, where I had, you know, the similar amounts of communication and fun. This, like, easily was so much fun. And you know what, to be able to have private matches with people that are watching or whatnot, and we're not just talking about to party, but to literally have to party up and play regular game modes. We're talking about like regular private matches to where we can create our own and we can just have fun within, you know, our specific game mode with specific rules and all that kind of stuff. And obviously for the competitive scene, I think that would be great also. And even from the content creator scene, like for instance, can you imagine watching some of your favorite XDefiant content creators, whether they're big or small or a mixture of both, just creating their own private matches and just, you know, doing a community stream of to where all the different creators are pretty much playing in that in private matches, and you get to see everybody that you're familiar with playing in the same game together, and to see who does well or to see which team wins and just have fun with it or whatnot. I think that would be really cool, and that is made possible by private matches. Community events, the foundation of community events are held in private matches, and then of course everything else such as you know, competitive and stuff like that. All right, moving on to the next thing on my list. Player profile / combat record upgrade. Right now, the combat record or player profile that we have in XDefiant is very bare bones, which is fine. I mean, it's something that it's not a make or break, so to speak, but there are a decent amount of players that would really like to know, like, would really like an upgrade on this in terms of, like, in terms of their specific stats, in terms of, like, hey, how's my accuracy with this weapon compared to this weapon? What's, you know, what weapon am I dying the most from? What faction am I dying the most from? Which faction am I using the most, etc., etc. You know, there's so many little details and stuff like that that I think a lot of players could really get a lot out of that. And again, not to compare it to Call of Duty, but to this day, the combat record that is still, all these years later, over a decade later, is still loved and adored, so to speak, is the Black Ops 1 combat record. A lot of people consider the Black Ops 1 combat record the best combat record there ever was in Call of Duty. So if we were to get something, like, I'm not necessarily saying cut and paste it, but I'm just saying if we were to get a more sophisticated combat record / player profile in XDefiant, I think a lot of players would be really appreciative of that. So, and there's a ton of things they can go into it. They can even have the little map drawings to where the red dots show where you got killed, and then the blue dots show where you got your kills, right? So some people can take advantage of that and actually improve how they play, believe it or not. So, and it helps them it keeps them from repeating the same mistake over and over and over again, because there's usually a pattern. Like whenever you see a lot of red dots in terms of the maps, in terms of where you died, that's usually because you keep on going into a spot to where you get killed. So it's like, hey, maybe I should stop going to this spot. Maybe I could go to another spot. All right, moving on. And this is also another one, in-game leaderboards. So, like, Obviously, there's XDefiant tracker, but even that one is not very sophisticated as well. It's very bare bones. You can definitely find leaderboards in different matches and stuff like that, which is great. But to have something like that in game, as well as a filter to where you can do weekly, monthly, or whatnot, I think a daily, weekly, monthly would be great. So, you know, even if you were the best player in the game, like if you were to, like, if let's say you have one day out of the week to really grind, and one day your goal is to like simply be the best for that day, right? And to see if you can actually move up the leaderboards in terms of being the best for that day, whether it's the amount of kills, whether it's, you know, games won, games played, blah, 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 whatever it is. I think to have something like that in game, as opposed to having to go to XDefiant Tracker to look that up, would be really, really cool, especially in the year 2024. You know, back during the Halo days, we had Bungie.net to where you had to look up specific stats, and then, you know, but right now, you know, I mean, you can easily do that in, if it was done during older games, you know, that came out like a decade ago, it can certainly be done with this one. So, all right, moving on. And this one here was requested by fellow YouTuber and friend of the channel, GCP, aka Game Changing Player. And I remember seeing him on multiple occasions tweeting at Mark Rubin about this, and it's a very reasonable request. And that is a ping system. So a ping system is basically where you get to, with the touch of a button, you can point out where people are on the map. Now, obviously, this is a lot more useful in competitive, but when you go back and if you've played Halo Infinite, there's a ping system. You can like press, you know, depending on whichever button you choose on your, like let's say for instance, you can go on your D-pad and press, let's say up or down or whatnot when you're pointing or aiming at a certain area, to where you can communicate with other players to where, hey, there's a player over here, so to speak. And I think even for pubs, that could be very useful for players that are new, so to speak. I don't know if they're going to do this or not. I'm not entirely sure, because there's a lot of ways to where, because of the faction abilities, there's ways to where people can actually, they know pretty well where other people are, but at the same time, maybe not. So I think it's a reasonable request. And even in Halo, there's not that many people that use it. Outside of ranked, there's not really that many people that use the ping system. Hell, even in ranked, there's not as many people that use the ping system as much as they could be using it. So to have that as an option is really good. All right, moving on. This kind of goes with the ping system, and we do know this is coming, but we just don't know when, and hopefully it'll be sometime in Season 1, hopefully sooner rather than later, and that is custom button mapping for controllers. So obviously, if you're playing with crossplay on, I think it would only be fair to be able to customize that. But even if crossplay wasn't a thing, I think it really is a big deal to where you can customize your button mapping however you want, right? Any button can do anything in accordance to what you're used to. And for a lot of players, it's usually just one or two buttons that they wish that they could change or whatnot to make it more comfortable and easier of access to them, especially if they're playing multiple first-person shooters. You know, the one thing that could be really annoying is like when you're using a specific button differently on this first-person shooter versus that first-person shooter, it could be something that really kind of screws up with your muscle memory, and you find yourself pressing the wrong button sometimes. So again, very reasonable request. Mark Rubin himself wants it. He says we're getting it, and hopefully we will be getting it in Season 1 at launch, but if not at launch, soon after. All right, moving on. Oh, and this is a big one. We also have confirmation from Mark Rubin that this is coming. Now, I'm not expecting this to be available on day one, because this is something that's a little bit of a bigger project, but it is important and it is coming, and Mark Rubin himself has already said that it is, and that is console-only crossplay. I made a separate video about that, but we know it's coming, and hopefully it will make Season 1. Like within the first 3 months of Season 1, which is how long the season's going to last, hopefully it will make at some point in time Season 1. I don't care. I mean, I do care, but I like, at the end of the day, if you get it in Season 1, it's a huge W for the game. I think a lot of players will really love it. A lot of players have requested it, and there are games out there that are some of the bigger games in first-person shooters. I know Overwatch, I believe, has this, as well as a couple of other games. So console-only crossplay is I think would be a great addition to the game, and it's coming, and hopefully it will be in Season 1. All right, next up, a lot of players have requested it. It's not, I don't know, some people will say this is a necessity or not a necessity, whatever, but that is kill cams. Kill cams, I believe Mark Rubin himself said that it is coming as well, but it is a big project. It is not something that is very easy, and at the same time, kill cams don't really represent exactly what happened. It's just kind of like a demo of what happened, and if you've played Call of Duty, at some point in time there are kill cams that are just inaccurate, and then what they need to do is they need to upgrade it to where it's a lot more accurate to what happened. So it's not exactly an accurate representation, but a lot of people are requesting kill cams. So since a lot of community members and players have requested kill cams, it's very reasonable. And here's one more thing that I forgot to add to the list, but it is important to a lot of people, and it has been requested, and that is theater mode. Like some sort of theater mode to where people can go back and they can look at gameplay and stuff like that and study themselves or study other players or study other teammates. I mean, hell, when you have theater mode, and if you ever run into like good players or whatnot or something like that into theater mode, or even, you know, some like big name YouTubers or something like that, like back in the day, content creators used to like do, they used to kind of, you know, break down gameplays from watching theater mode or whatnot. And obviously for the competitive scene, they watch a lot of theater mode to see what that team is doing to beat their team, or what that team is doing right or what it's doing wrong, and strategize. So when you have a game that has a competitive mode and ranked as well, you know, I think theater mode is a big one. And at the same time, a lot of people watch theater mode in order to see if anybody is cheating or doing anything sus or whatnot. All right. Okay, moving on to the next thing on the list. Faction adjustments / rebalancing. I think there's more people that want factions to be tuned, so to speak, than there are people that want factions left alone. So I figured that that would be a really big thing to add on the list. Now, how they're going to be tuned, it has yet to be seen. It has been a big request, and the devs are constantly getting data about it, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to be revealing that data, and it is an important part of the game. So I think that there's going to be some sort of faction faction adjustment / rebalancing that's coming, and hopefully they don't like, one thing that I don't want is I don't want all abilities to be like nerfed to the ground. As a matter of fact, I don't think they'll do that. As a matter of fact, if there's anything that they will change, they're either going to do it in one or two ways that I'm predicting. And again, I could be wrong, but these are the two ways that I'm predicting. Number one, they're either going to limit the amount of factions that you're going to be using per match, in terms of like you can't use more than like, let's say 2 echelon, for instance. They might do that, but I'm not entirely sure, because according to what we hear, that they're not going to do that in ranked. But I don't know. We'll see how that works out. But if they don't do that, they might make it to where the countdown timer in terms of how often you can use, for instance, the intel suit, just to name one ability, they might increase it, because 30 seconds is pretty damn, like, they're gonna adjust it in some sort of way. So I'm expecting that. So anyway, all right, moving on to the next thing on the list. Obviously, this is pretty obvious. Quality of life improvements, bug fixes, anti-cheat updates. I think that's pretty much a given. So, you know, because obviously there's no game that releases without bugs, and XDefiant is certainly no exception to that. So, again, quality of life improvements, maybe even a few UI adjustments here and there. Obviously, bug fixes and anti-cheat updates, which is something that they're going to consistently have to do if they want the game to remain as clean as possible. This is a very big deal. And of course, last but certainly not least on my list here is desync improvements, right? It's going to be something that, and Mark Rubin has already mentioned this, that it's going to be an update to update basis. It's not like they're going to have like one big ass update and then, you know, the problem is fixed. It's going to be something that they're going to continuously be working on improving over time from update to update, because the desync is not the only thing that they want to focus on. Obviously, they also want to focus on other things such as, you know, the content, game modes, the weapons that we're going to be getting, the maps and stuff like that. Because remember, when you release new content into a game, there's new problems that arise when you unleash it, you know, into a big pool of players, so to speak. So there's things that they're going to continuously and consistently have to worry about, because again, like I said, the more you add into the game and the more you update your game, and then when you release it, etc., you know, you have to make sure that everything flows as smooth as it can possibly be. All right, so with that being said, guys, that is my little list of the community wish list for Season 1 with XDefiant. If there's anything that I missed that you think is important or that has been mentioned, which is definitely possible, please let it be known in the comments section below, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I totally forgot something, but I took a reasonable amount of time to think about this. But again, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect, and it sure as hell doesn't mean that, you know, that there's something that I haven't missed, and I'm pretty sure I have. So I hope you let me know about that in the comment section below, or other ideas that you might have in terms of what could be added in Season 1 from a content or a feature standpoint that you think would be better for the game. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.